No, no. Hello, everyone. Happy Arbor Day. I want to welcome you to our Christmas tree nursery tour. I'm Marcia Gray with the Real Christmas Tree Board, and I'm excited that we have such a great turnout for Arbor Day today. We have thousands of students joining us, and we hope you enjoy today's tour. Before we start the tour, I do have a few quick reminders for those of you participating. If you are watching this on YouTube, you won't have the opportunity to ask questions as we go along. However, those participating on Zoom can ask questions using the Q&A icon. Just type those in and we will monitor them. The chat feature has been disabled, so don't enter your questions in chat, enter them in Q&A. And I'll be monitoring those questions and we will do our best to get to as many of those as we possibly can. But also please listen carefully because probably someone else is asking the same question that you have and you might get it answered before you even have time to type it in. So a little bit about today's tour. So Christmas tree farmers don't plant seeds into the field. Christmas tree farmers generally plant seedlings, which are small trees. But someone has to grow those small seedlings for us, for our Christmas tree farms, and these are unique farms called nurseries. Today we are going out to Oregon and we are visiting one of those nurseries. And so I'm excited to introduce our farmer today, Jan Hupp. Hi, Jan.
Good morning, Marcia. How you doing? Thank you.
Thanks for having us out to your farm. We can't wait to learn more.
Oh, great. Glad you could make it today. Welcome to Oregon. We're on the west side, about an hour out of Portland. It's a family farm. We've been in business for over 50 years. My parents started it, and they both passed away. It's now run by my wife and myself and our management team here at the farm. And we do Christmas trees, cut Christmas trees, and then we also have the little seedling nursery. So in our nursery, we take the seed, we plant it out in the ground, and then grow it for a couple of summers and we harvest it. We'll go into that in more detail a little bit later on. And then we also plant the seed into our greenhouses, and that's where we're at today. So I thought I would just start off with a little bit about where does the seed come from. So I believe we have a photo queued up there of some trees. There we go. There's one. That's a noble fir cone, and they grow upright. This is a Douglas fir. I just cut this today, a branch out of a tree. And we're kind of lucky today because you can see a little baby cone right there. And my camera gal is Savannah, my office manager. So if I keep on talking to Savannah, so that's a brand new cone. You see these little yellow things, that's the pollen. This pollen will go to that cone. And left over from last year is this cone. This is last year. So that's right at a year old right now. So this is the finished product. And if you take these cones, and if you rattle them around, Mother Nature does this for us. If we're lucky, we'll get a little seed out of one. There's this little seed right there, a little baby seed. So we take this to a cleaner and we have them cleaned and processed. And then we'll get them back. And this bag right here is about a pound of Douglas fir seed, that same seed. In this bag, there's about 40,000 little seeds. Out of that, we will get around 25,000 finished little seedlings. Today, when we go inside of our shop, you'll be seeing a bigger seed. This is a tree that comes out of Europe. This is actually Trojan fir. It's a brand new to the Christmas tree industry, and we're really excited about it. This is about 6,000 seeds per pound. So you can see the difference. It won't come out. Anyway, you can see the difference in the little sizes of the seeds and stuff like that. So we have that. So we take our seed, we process it, we take the seed, we soak it in water, we put it in a refrigerator. That's simulating wintertime. That's called stratification. So it's in there for about a month. And then let's walk in the shop and I'll show you where we plant the seed. So we're coming inside, and this is where we take the blocks. So what we do is have this machine that is filling the blocks usually. It's filling it up, puts the, doesn't want to come out. It fills this block up with the potting mix. This potting mix is primarily peat moss, and it's what most people use to put their seed into. It comes down here. Just wait there, Savannah. This is what a finished block looks like. It's got little holes, and in each one of these blocks, we'll put a couple of seeds. Let's step over to the seeding machine.
Jan, this is Marcia. Those blocks look pretty lightweight. Is that like a styrofoam?
Yeah, there's styrofoam and there's different sizes. So the size of this cell, each cell inside, each block, this is a block, this is a cell. And the bigger the cell, usually the more roots you can get it. And all trees are a little bit different. Some trees like a smaller cell, some ones like a larger cell. This is one of the largest cells that we have because we're growing a big tree. So come on down and you can see our machine. So now that we have our potting mix in the flat, Savannah, if you can just reach right over there. And you can see the sowing machine. And that's what they call it, is a sowing machine, because it's sowing seed into those little blocks. It picks up a couple of little seeds. And usually right now we're trying to do about 2 to 3 seeds per cell. And if the machine misses a spot, because it's kind of a big seed, we're having our crew members go through there and fill in the missing spots. So then it will come down in a second after they've got all of the little seeds in the cells. It'll come through, and all this is just common sawdust. We screened it out, and this is what we used to cover our seed, like in your gardens. When you plant your seed, you got to cover your seed. In a second here, you can just watch that little machine. It automatically fills it up, and it's covered with sawdust. We bring it over here and put it on our pallets, and from there, we're going to go outside into the greenhouses.
Jan, I know you put it, I noticed you're putting in 2 and 3 seeds in each cell. So do you grow 2 or 3 trees together, or what happens there?
Well, a lot of these seeds, some of them are not a viable seed. So you might put 2 seeds in on there, but only one of them will grow. So sometimes you have to plant 2 and 3 seeds per cavity, per cell, and hoping that 1 or 2 will grow. So sometimes if we have too many in a cavity, we will dig one out and put it in another cell, because we want these greenhouses all the way filled up with 100% fill if we can. And sometimes when we have too much, then we just have to lose the extra trees. But here's some trees that we planted probably about a couple of weeks to a month ago. Savannah, if you can get a close-up of that. These are just little baby ones, and they will be growing in here for the rest of the summertime. And if you can just get a full run down there, Savannah. So this greenhouse is about 150 feet long. That translates to about 125 trees in this one greenhouse that will be planted out eventually. So
Jan, how many trees in that greenhouse?
about 125,000.
Okay, thank you. Well, I thought it was going to be in the thousands. That's amazing.
Yeah, 125,000 in the greenhouses and stuff like that. So so these are just little baby trees right now. And I know that kids always ask, because we do these tours on a regular basis, is about how long does it take for a Christmas tree to become a tree? So we'll leave these in here for one summer. They'll grow all year long. And then after that, we will go ahead and harvest them. We'll show that video in a second from what we did this last winter. We plant them out in the field. We have another video to share with the kids with that. And then they will grow outside in the open summer for about 8 summers for about an 8-foot tree. Now that's on average. Some trees grow faster, some trees go slower. And this is what we do in Oregon, but it's a general idea throughout the United States. That's a happy average, about a foot a year. So if you in your house you have a 8-foot tree, it's been out in the field for about 8 years and probably 1 or 2 years out in the greenhouse.
That's a lot of planning, and you really have to work well in advance then to figure out enough trees for each holiday season.
Right. Yeah, we have to plan in advance. We're always saying, on this farm, we have 25, 24 greenhouses. And so we go through there and we figure out, what are we going to plant in this house? What are we going to plant in that one? Just to get our numbers. So there is a lot of planning. The seed, you have to buy the seed years in advance, because Mother Nature doesn't every year throw out a seed crop. Some years it just doesn't. And we really don't know why. But some years there just isn't a seed crop. So you got to plan years in advance. It's not like something you can go to Walmart or Kmart and just buy off the shelf. It's kind of a specialty crop. So
In
we'll
fact,
raise this. Go ahead.
I said, Jan, keep walking, but that leads me right into another question we received before the program started. Someone wanted to know, how do you store the seeds if you keep them for more than a year? How do you store them and keep them healthy and ready to grow?
Well, what we like to do is we get our seed and we try to dry it down. We don't want it really wet. We want it kind of dry, and you don't get it so dry that the seed inside actually dies. You want it dry to kind of put it dormancy. So we do that, and then we put it in a big bag, and then we have a freezer that goes down to about 0 degrees. Different trees, like the bigger seed, that Trojan that we looked at, that seed is only good for like 2 or 3 years. We can have Douglas fir seed, that smaller one that I had, there was like 40,000 in that little sack. That seed can stay good for 20 and 30 years if it's in a freezer. So if you freeze it and you properly take care of it, it can last for quite a few years. So here's another greenhouse. These are some little trees that were growing for 2 years. So they're just little babies, but they're going to grow in there for 1 more year, and we will harvest them next year. Let's pull out a tree there. With this tree, you can see right in there, it grew that much last year, and this much is this year's new growth. And that tree will probably be about that tall, to the top of my finger, by the end of the season. You can see the potting mix. We went through that earlier. And the roots grow down to the bottom, and you can see all the little roots right in there. So that's what a finished plant looks like. We also have, at the end of the season, these are some little grand fir that we had, and you can see that that's a finished Christmas tree. Then again, we have the little roots right there. And let's get one right here. You can see really close that little tree is already beginning to grow. This is this year's new growth. So they're just coming out of their wintertime hibernation, dormancy. So after they've been in the greenhouses for a year, possibly 2, then we will go and harvest them. And I believe we have a video. If we could see that video of the harvesting process, I can talk you through it. So here's our crew, and this is a finished tree. These are noble fir, and those noble fir are gonna be taken out to the shop. We'll take them in that same shop where we just walked. That's the same shop if you look at it, and they put them on a rack, and then we start blocking them down. We start pulling them out, and we'll put piles of 10. So as soon as that crew member gets 10, they put them on a little conveyor belt, and they go down, and then they're going to go in a bag. And once they're in that bag, they will stay in that bag. And there's about maybe 150 to 200 trees in each one of those bags. We have these big coolers that you can drive your pickup or your car into. They're big coolers. And so what we do is put them in there, and cold storage. They'll probably be like your refrigerator at home. It's kind of wet, kind of moist. They will be in there for hopefully no more than a month or 2. Sometimes they can go longer than that. But we will do that, and then wait till the season is good. If you're going to hand plant your little Christmas tree seedlings, you can pick them up and go out and do that in the middle of the winter time. If it's with a machine, usually you got to wait till further into the springtime to when it's dry enough that you can get our machines through there. So I believe we have a video coming up next of our planting. This is harvesting. So this is, I mentioned we plant some of the trees out in the ground. You can see the dirt. So this is out in the ground. This is a little specialty tree that we're growing for a customer. These are 3 years old, so they're a little bit bigger than we usually do them. We have the tractor go through. They're really slow. You can hardly see it move if you're very far away. And that little red tool right there, that goes through there and it shakes and rattles and wiggles and loosens up the soil. And then we put them in these big boxes, and that's how we get them to our shop. When we get to our shop, we have to sort them out. As you can see, that thing is wiggling and shaking, and hopefully get as much dirt out of there as we can. The roots, they've all kind of intertwined and grown together. And then I've got one of my crew members here in a second that's going to pick up a couple of trees. That's a big that's a big seedling, and so that's 3 years old outside. Dan, I think we have another video.
Jan, I'm going to interrupt real quick before we get started on that next one. Oh dear, we have a question, goes back just a
Oh,
little bit. When you were talking about the different types of seed, you showed them the Turkish and you showed them the Douglas fir seed. They want to know, where do you get the seed? Is it something you get off of your own farm, or do you get it from other sources?
um, a little bit of both. So on our own farm, we have a mature noble fir seed orchard that we've with our local Christmas tree association have tested the trees to make sure that that tree has seed, and the little seedlings, the little babies that come out of that tree are going to be really nice. So we've been selecting that stuff for 40, 50 years. So we have a seed orchard and we have some trees, and then we go out and we collect those here on our own farm. We have 3 different kinds of trees. We have noble fir, we have Trojan, we have Nordman, and we have a Turkish orchards. So we try to grow our own seed when we can. But a lot of the times we have to buy it. Some of it comes from the East Coast, from different seed orchards, and we get quite a bit of stuff from Europe. Some of like the Trojan and the Turkish Nordman. A lot of that actually comes from over in not Soviet Georgia, but in Georgia and Turkey, over that area.
Mm-hmm.
So the seeds come from all over the place. And if it's like a Fraser fir that comes out of North Carolina, they have their own seed orchards, and they do sometimes go up in the mountains and collect their wild seeds. So every region has their own tree, and they usually have their own seed orchards, or they collect it there.
I love that term, seed orchard. That really shows, it sounds like an apple orchard or something. You're really growing those trees specifically for the seed.
Yeah, yes, we definitely are. I mean, we've selected these. These are good trees that have good green color. They make a nice full Christmas tree. They grow fast, and the better the tree is, the prettier that Christmas tree is going to be. So industry wide, we spend a lot of time studying all of this stuff to make sure that we get the best thing. And the easiest way to do that is when you find a tree that looks really nice and has really good babies, you bring it into a seed orchard, and then you collect it, and that way you've got hopefully good genetics, good offspring every year and stuff like that.
Fantastic. Now I will let you get to I think you wanted to get to a planting video, so I'll let you do that.
Okay. So in our planting video, this is our planting machine. This was shot about 2 weeks ago. And you can see the little machine. They're going kind of slow. They'll set it in the ground, and you see that round wheel that just begins to touch the ground. So as we're going very slowly, you can see those little fingers, those little clips, they call it. And we put a tree in each one of those. And then again, they're going very slow. So a lot of the time it goes so fast that you can't hardly see it move. But that grabs the little tree, cuts a little trench in the ground, and then puts it in as the tractor goes forward. In this little field, we're planting trees really close together, about 3 feet apart, and these are going to be little tabletops. These would be great little Christmas trees that would go in your on your table. Maybe your grandparents want a smaller tree. They don't want that big tree anymore. Maybe you have a small car, or you're riding the subway and you can't get a big tree. So we grazed little baby trees for different reasons and stuff like that. But these are actually planted. These will be out in the field. For these trees will be out in the field for about 5 years before they're up to that size, because we planted them closer together and we'll get a smaller tree. This is just some aerial shots of our farm. You can see just we're out there on a farm. We're not in a forest. These are not trees that we go out and we cut down. These were planted specifically for Christmas trees. We've had fields that 100 years ago, they were hops for beer and stuff like that. Then it was grass seed. They've grown wheat in these fields. They've grown flowers in these fields. We've had nursery stock, and these right now we're converting these back to Christmas trees. So it truly is a crop planted for a reason, not just something we go out in the woods and cut down.
I love that. Jan, we're getting several questions
Okay.
related to weather conditions. What are great conditions for growing Christmas trees? Can we grow them everywhere? What do you look for? And do you need cold? About three or four different questions, all related to weather related to growing a Christmas tree.
So the number one thing you need is a certain amount of moisture. So you can grow trees in cold areas or in like dry areas, but if you don't have water, you're kind of in trouble. So like in Arizona, not many Christmas trees down there. And if there is, then they're probably going to be irrigated down there, which is fine. There's a lot of people that irrigate Christmas trees. And Oregon's known for the rainy Oregon and stuff like that. And so we don't have to irrigate our trees up here, but some states do. If it gets too hot, sometimes when you plant that little baby tree in the ground, you have some issues and stuff like that. So if you're in an area that gets really, really hot, sometimes there can be a problem. But for the most of the United States, I don't think there's a state that we can't raise a real Christmas tree in. You might just have to add water. So you can grow them all over the place.
Fantastic. We're also getting a lot of questions, and I don't want to get you off track if there was something else you wanted to cover, but a lot of questions about the greenhouse itself. Like, why are you starting these trees in a greenhouse? Why not just outside? Some you do, but what's the purpose of the greenhouse?
Well, like I'd said early on, we have some trees outside. They're kind of open to the element. If you get a cold spell and you get frost, you can damage the trees. They grow slower outside, so it usually takes 2 years. If we bring them in the greenhouse, now we can control the environment. We have heaters if it gets too cold and frosty. We will be planting the seed before the ground is thawed out in quite a few areas, so we can get this done in 1 year. The greenhouse has good humidity, good heat, and we have circulation to keep the mold and some of the other issues down. And it's just like that premium area to grow a tree. And that's why we use greenhouses, and it grows faster. What would normally be a 1 year plant inside of a greenhouse would take a couple of years.
Okay.
So if we're in a hurry to get some trees, we can put them in here and get them out faster to our customers. So here at our nursery, and I mentioned early on that we raise Christmas trees ourselves, but on our farm, we sell most on our nursery here. We sell most of what we have. This year, we're probably at about 3 to 4 million little seedlings that we're going to be selling and stuff like that. And we don't plant hardly a fraction of that here on our own farm. So most of these are grown. Like this whole greenhouse is all one variety. And this whole greenhouse is going to be baby Christmas trees in the future. We'll harvest these this next year, next winter when everything's dormant and it's cold. They'll pop them out. And I already showed you the little tree. We'll put them in the ground. And then in the springtime, when they start growing, they'll have, maybe 4 or 5 feet between each tree instead of a couple of inches between each tree. And then that's where you'll get your finished Christmas tree.
Great. And then a little bit about the process of going from the seedling and then out into the field. Because we're getting a lot of questions about the trees out in the field. Someone was wondering, why are you growing them so close together? But I think it's the plan is they will then be spread out and over a big field. How many trees would a Christmas tree farm typically plant? Like how tight, how close, how many per acre?
Okay, so for the kids out there, an acre is usually, if you've ever watched a football game, either on TV or your local school, that's generally about an acre. So when you say an acre, think of a football field. Maybe a soccer field. I think soccer field's a little bit smaller, but that's about that idea. Typically, most people will be putting on around 1,200, 1,500 trees per acre. And that planting machine, I said they were growing kind of closer on that closer spacing because we want a shorter little tree. We can put more trees per acre, and we got about 5,000 trees per acre. But the average acre is, let's say, 1,500, and you're right in the ballpark.
Fantastic. And I think one of the other things that we've seen a lot of questions on, before we even started, and a few in the chat. Let's talk a little bit about the environment. Are real Christmas trees good for the environment? Is it something we should be doing? Maybe you can enlighten us and tell us a bit more.
Sure. Yeah. I shared earlier, a lot of our trees, the fields used to be another crop, and so we are putting in trees in that crop. Well, these other fields, the crop goes in and out every year. When you put a tree in that field, that whole field, you're not working the ground, so you're not getting a bunch of erosion issues. You're putting the trees in there, and they're doing a great job of what trees do, which is taking the CO2 out of the air and making oxygen. So you're really getting that really great benefit. So you put the trees in there and holds the soil, because those roots, I have a photo and I wish I would have had that. The roots go straight down and they get the moisture out of the ground. They're not taking a bunch of the surface moisture. And it's just a great way to grow trees. There's other options that include plastics, but we don't, we believe that a real Christmas tree is the best choice for the environment.
And, can you tell me a little, I know a lot of the Christmas tree farmers that I'm friends with, we talk a lot about, not of course at a nursery like this, but in the Christmas tree fields, some of the wildlife that lives there and makes that their home.
Sure. Yeah, there's birds. I mean, it's not uncommon to during harvest season to find an old nest that's abandoned. There's no birds in it anymore, no eggs, but you'll find a little baby bird's nest in there and stuff like that. And that bird next year will just have to go find another new Christmas tree, because when you're planting trees every year and you're harvesting trees every year, it's a sustainable crop that you're always planting, you're always harvesting, and there's always lots of fields. Oregon has a lot of Christmas trees, so there's lots of other areas where those baby birds could go live at. So we have that. There are lots of insects, and the best insects are the ones that are in the ground that are so small you can't see them. And that is part of the soil health. So that's a great thing. There's rabbits that are out in the fields that are running around. It's not uncommon to see deer out there. If you have a taller field, when they get to be above like 4 and 5 feet, about as high as I am, then you have areas out there where the wildlife can live out there. But
Mhm.
between the rabbits and the birds and the squirrels that run through there, and there's always mice and stuff like that, there's a lot of wildlife that live in these fields because they're like a miniature forest. They're not a forest because it's planted as a crop, but it has a lot of the same aspects of it.
And talking about that full-size Christmas tree field, we've received a question about what, after the tree is cut down, what do the growers do with leftover roots and stumps?
Well, there's a couple of different ways to do that. And one of them is you will just take a shovel or an auger, drill a hole in the ground, and put a little baby tree right next to that stump. Some people do that. If it's on a really steep land, you don't want to get a bunch of erosion, you can do that. On our farm, we go out there with little excavators and we pull up the stumps and we shake the dirt out. We collect them and we put them in a big pile and we burn them. That way, if there's any disease on those roots, you can get rid of it. There's other people that go through there with a big rototiller, like you might use in your garden or like on your little flower beds, and it just grinds up those stumps. It works up your soil and stuff like that. So that's the easiest way to get. Those are the three main ways. Either you pull them, you grind them, or you just plant around them for your next crop of Christmas trees.
All right. And a question that just popped up, and we saw a couple, some video of there's different types of planting, different ways to plant Christmas trees into the field. And the question is, how many trees can you plant in one day?
Sure. The question is the trees planting, it depends upon the field. The like right now we are planting around probably 5 to 7,000 trees. We're in a smaller field. You have to turn around really often. If you're in a big field with some long rows, you can plant 10, 15,000 trees a day. So, and if you're hand planting, that goes a lot slower.
Sure, that makes a
Excuse me.
lot of sense. And we got a really fun question.
Yep.
This is kind of a one for your record book. What's the tallest tree you have ever grown and sold as a Christmas tree?
Oh, the tallest one we've ever had was probably 18 to 20 feet. Um, those are those are hard. I don't like doing them, but every once in a while you have a friend or a special customer. We've had some where the stem would be 14, 16 inches around. So going back to the planting question, there's a video queued up right now that you can see. That is a field. It's not one of mine, but it's one of my neighboring farmers that had a hillside and they were concerned about their erosion. So they left that stubble. I would say that that's probably like a wheat or a grain of some sort that they went through there, and they're planting around it. They're planting by hand with those little augers. They drill a little hole. They put their little tree inside there, and then they shove in the dirt to get good contact around the roots, and that way you don't have the tractor, and it's a better way of doing it on certain fields to control erosion and stuff. That's more of a hand planting style, and there's still hundreds of thousands of trees planted in Oregon and across the United States where everything is done by hand like that. They just take a little tree, drill the little hole, and as you can see, like right now, they're just packing the dirt around it, and that tree should be in good shape. It'll come out of the wintertime and it'll be ready to go, and it will be growing probably in a couple of weeks, in a month.
That's fantastic. Really interesting to see the different methods of getting those trees in the ground. And we know a lot has to do with your topography. If it's hilly, you can't put the tractor on it. If it's
Yep.
uneven, really makes for some interesting challenges. We are really getting near the end. Um, We've had some questions come in that are kind of going back to where we started, but I think that's appropriate since we're talking about baby trees and seeds and seedlings. Let's go back a little bit again to the cone as a reminder for the students. One question is, are the pine cones actually seeds? But I think you told me they're kind of like the house for the seed.
Right, right. So the that think of it as a nursery or a little incubator. So you have that cone, and if you look at that, they call that a scale, where each one of those is kind of comes out like as a little layer, kind of like a flower, how the petals open up. Well, it's the same thing with that cone. And inside of every one of those little grooves is where the pollen goes in, and there's a little seed that's viable, and it gets fertilized, and then the cone will close up tight, and all summer long that cone will grow that seed. They call it a seed or an embryo, and so they will grow that, and then in the fall time when it gets warm, some trees will, like the little fir cone that I had, will open up and expand, and pine cones do it too, where they open up and they release the seed. And like on this kind of tree in here, a Nordman fir, noble fir, the cone actually grows grows upright from the branch, and then when it gets dry, it actually just falls apart, and they call it exploding. They don't truly explode, but they will just fall apart, and all that's left is like one little stem about the size of a pencil. And then if the tree's up in the air, let's say 50 or 100 feet, the little seeds get scattered all over the place. So the cone is think of it as the nursery where you grow the seed inside of it.
I think that's a really good description, kind of like how your mom and dad take care of you when you're a baby and put you someplace nice and safe. The same thing that's what that cone does. And as you said,
Perfect.
it's kind of a couple year process. So really exciting. Jan, this has been really informative. I think we've gotten to most of the questions. There's always a few out there that we've missed, but we're trying to answer them through typing. But again, we have to limit our time just because classrooms have to get on with the rest of their day. But Jan, I'm going to give you a huge thank you you from the Real Christmas Tree Board and to all of the classrooms and students who joined us. We really appreciate you joining us. You can learn more about us by using the link with the virtual farm tour folks. We think it was a lot of fun, and we will be having a few more tours as we get closer to the holiday season. So watch for that in October and November.
Very good. Well, thank you for having us, and thank you for letting me show you around our farm.
We appreciate it,
And
Jamie.
happy Arbor Day to you.
Yeah, happy Arbor Day to everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.